Hi, it's Ranbir. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me here on YouTube, or perhaps you're listening on my podcast, Living Light Radio. If you're new to me, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My background is that I've been a life strategies coach since 2009. I am an author, a podcaster, and most importantly, I'm a mom of two incredible sons that I'm raising on the west coast of Canada with my husband. So, the theme of this channel is to learn to like yourself and to strengthen the relationships under your roof. And really, that's the relationships in your heart, the ones that are most important to you, and learning to like the people that you love. It's quite an interesting experience to go through that exercise. And I thought today, because it's the timing of this recording is just before Valentine's Day, and those types of you know things like Valentine's Day can really lead to arguments and people not being seen, felt, or heard, whether it's kids or whether it's your partner or somebody you're dating, so on and so forth. So I wanted to cover that through having a conversation about how to fight fair. The reality is there's always this sort of butterflies and rainbow thing that says you shouldn't fight. No, no, no. Oh, yeah. If you have a healthy relationship, you shouldn't have any arguments. It should just be easy. And that's a lie. So that's a lie. So I think for first and foremost, you should start off with the idea that you shouldn't even be afraid of conflict, because conflict is all it's an opportunity for you to grow. So you're going to have conflict when you share your innermost self with other people, whether they be your children or whether they be a romantic relationship, or whether it even be a friendship. When you share that innermost part of yourself, you have a potential for conflict, and conflict should and always be considered an opportunity for you, and maybe even for the other person to grow. But you're not responsible for them, so let's not go there. Let's just focus on you for now, right? So I think that's the first thing. Don't be afraid of having conflict. And because butterflies and rainbows and all that la la land stuff isn't real life, and you should stay anchored in reality and focus on what's good for you, and that is being okay with that. The second thing, oh my gosh, we've all had arguments where the argument is that, oh, you didn't hang up your wet towel. Let's just use that. You didn't hang up your wet towel. I've told you 100 times to hang up your wet towel. And so you start with this thing that you're irritated by. Your kid, your partner didn't hang up the towel or didn't do this thing. So that's where you start. And then you get into this argument, and then you end up like in a completely different place. Like you land somewhere else, to the point where you actually forget what the argument was about. So when you're having disagreements, try to stay really focused on the issue that you're fighting about or disagreeing about. Don't go off and use that as a jumping board for all the other things you want to discuss or debate. Okay, so number two, right? So stay with the thing that started the disagreement, finish that. And so sometimes what happens is when we go off into this other place and we land somewhere else and you forget what you're fighting about, what's really happening is that you're not talking about this one event. You're ending up talking about some core issue. So make sure that there's something that you identify that. So if you're fighting over towels one day, and you're fighting maybe over uh, dishes another day. I'm just using house examples because I can't think of any other ones right off the top of my head. And I record these YouTube videos live without a script. So I'm just going off the top of my head. So, you could be fighting over different things, but you always end up on the same bigger core issue. And a lot of that time, it could be, fidelity, it could be money, It could be things like that that are big things that need to be addressed, but instead of addressing them, because maybe you fear conflict, like we talked about that, you dance around the topic and you never really get to the core issue and dissecting what is it about that core issue that's unresolved. How can you get to the bottom of it, get a grip on it, and understand how it's undermining your relationship, so you can acknowledge it, so you can create a plan about it. So if it's money and one person's spending and the other person can't keep up with the supply, sit down and have a conversation about the issue, not about all the little topics that go with that. So that's another point that leads me to you know um, not downplaying it. So what happens is, in a lot of times in a lot of arguments, we'll have one person that thinks this thing is a big issue and the other person that thinks it's not a big issue. But if you're in a relationship with somebody, whether it's parent child or partner partner or friend friend, whatever it is, um, if it's an issue for one person in the group or couple, it's an issue for both of you. So don't try to pretend like it's their issue. If it's something that overlaps between you two, it is something that you need to discuss together and have an agreement on a plan, or an agreement on or the other way you could sort of create some safety and security for the person that feels like it's an issue, is to do something called active listening. I've talked about this a lot of times. And active listening is when you're paying attention to what the person is saying and hearing them in that moment, and not paying attention, not focusing on what you want to say next. So when you become a good active listener, you're paying attention to body language as well as the words being spoken, because most of that communication that you're having, especially in an argument, is body language based. So pay close attention, because sometimes all it takes is to say, I hear you. I see how this is important to you. I understand that you feel this way. So something really simple can actually, take take all that sort of energy around an issue or argument away, just by saying, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, I understand you, or I have compassion for you, rather than trying to fight it because you're saying that's your issue, not my issue, and blah, 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 blah. All that means is that they need your support. Okay, so, and then the fun one that I've left for last, because I thought I'd cover off those other topics first, right? So don't be afraid of conflict. It's a tool for growth and expansion, and it allows you to really truly take up some room. So being able to express yourself in what feels like a conflict, but to not stand your ground, but share your perspective, because your perspective matters when you're in a relationship. Both perspectives or multiple perspectives, everybody's perspective matters. Staying focused on the actual argument, and then not confusing unresolved things with the towel that didn't get put away, and not downplaying other people's perspective. So that's what I've covered so far. The last one, like I said, is the big one, and it's focusing on the disagreement, not the person. So what happens in so many fights is the name calling starts, and then you can't get a hold of the argument, and you can't really resolve things like that, because you go down that rabbit hole of name calling. So it creates such big disconnect in relationships when you start blaming the person, not the perspective. um, that you will damage relationships. And of course, they can be repaired. Oh my goodness, that's totally possible. But if you can avoid the damage in the first place, why not make this contingency plan over here that says, when we have this disagreement, my intention is to talk about the thing that we're arguing about, not the person, because I do love this person, or I do like this person, and I just want them to hear me and understand my perspective. So making sure you don't use blanket statements that label the entire person. Only focus on the perspective that you disagree with. So that's a really, really big thing because you can't, once you say those things, you can't take them back. You can you can work on building the trust again for sure. Like I said, that's not impossible. But the benefit of focusing on perspective, not the person, is that you will have, it's really a growth mindset, right? You're focusing on growth and getting through this conflict in order to maximize your human experience and your heart, grow your heart. So those are some really quick tips on how to fight fair. And the truth is that you will have conflict in your life. You already know that. Don't hide from it, but also don't blow it up. Don't make it bigger than it is. Be realistic about what it is, what you need, how you can change and create long lasting change. So if you're the type of person that's in a relationship where you have the same argument over and over again, please watch the video again. Take notes. You don't have to have the other person do this exercise, right? That's the last thing I'll leave you with. You don't have to have both of you come and buy in and do all of these steps. You can start with you. And by starting with you, you're going to lead by example, you're going to role model, and you can create the change you so desire. So that's really important because a lot of people I know may watch this video and think, okay, now I'm going to go tell my partner or my kids that these are the rules they have to follow. You can have that discussion in a calm time and say, let's make a plan that works, but it lands with you. You got to decide, how do you want to argue? And so how do you want to fight? And fighting fair can create a lot of great growth in your life. You're just being pushed. It's like lifting muscle or lifting weight to create muscle. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so that's the conversation for today. I would love to hear if you have any additional tips on how to fight fair. Some other people I know have like a trigger word that helps them when they're in that spinning where they start here about the towel and end up over here about the money. Sometimes they have keywords that'll pull them out of the argument so they can stop. Other people will say, you know what, this is leading us down a path. I'm going to leave the room. When I come calm down, I'll come back and we can discuss it. So sometimes saying that you need to calm down so you can discuss this fairly might be something that helps interrupt the pattern of the fight. So that's a tool that's important. And I have, a confession to make. I used to be a big fighter. I used to argue and argue and argue a lot in my life. So I am, sort of healed, healed from this habit. So it took me making those micro adjustments and adapting those micro habits to change how I approach fighting and conflict, because I had such a low self-image that I didn't know how to fight fair, for lack of a better term. So I know the transformation can be had and that your relationships can grow in spite of the habits you might have in place right now. Like I said, if you have any other additional tips to what I've shared, please share them below. And, I run a small business that's trying to make a big difference in the world. So if you can be so kind, if you found this, conversation helpful, please do share it with your friends and family, share it on your social media and comment. So if you see a post about it, make a comment or even save the post. Those little things go a long way for a small business like mine that, like I said, is trying to make a big difference in the world. I really appreciate you tuning in and hearing me out here just before Valentine's Day. If that's when you're listening to it, that's when I'm recording. But these tips apply any time of the year and maybe really, really valid right now based on all the compression we're feeling emotionally based on what we're all going through. Anyway, thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful week ahead.